you ever feel like your life is Groundhog Day? The same thing every day. The same thing every day. Do you wonder if it's possible to get excited about life again? Welcome to GoalPost. The path to the end zone is all in your head. Dynamic conversations covering topics about mindsets that high-performing people use to get exactly what they want out of life. Be prepared to be challenged, but be prepared to receive the tools to help you reach your goals and beyond. Unconventional, but effective. Heard on allrealradio.com. Welcome to GoalPost. Now your host, Janelle Sam.
You only get one shot at making a powerful, memorable first impression. How you dress, your carriage, and your speech speaks more volume about who you are than what you say you are and what you tell people that you are. If you're listening tonight, how would you like to learn about how to be more intentional with the way you speak and present yourself? Would you be interested in learning how to use your voice as part of that package to make a powerful impression when you walk into a room? If so, you're in the right place. And I thank you for joining me on this show. You will find it very, very informative. And over the next couple of hours, you're going to learn about the impressions that we make that we're not even aware of. We're not realizing that we're making them. And you're going to hear a very engaging conversation from one of the top voice coaches, not just here in the US, but globally. You're going to hear how she works with her client and what she sees and what goes on in a person when they're interacting and communicating with others that affect the impressions that they leave and they make. Welcome to GoalPost. So thank you for joining me tonight. And I am on tonight's show, I am joined by a very dear friend of mine. We've known each other for, what is it now, like 18 years? Diane, I know, and I don't think we've aged. I think we look the same.
We do. We're incredible.
I mean, I'm so excited to have her on the show. And, you know, just to tell you a little bit about Diane Tauser is an established vocal technique teacher and speech performance coach, and she's based in New York City. For over 20 years, Diane has worked closely with Broadway, off-Broadway, regional theater actors, anime voiceover artists, as well as dance performing artists. In 2020, she had the honor to work with multiple cast members of Alanis Morissette's and Diablo Cody's Jagged Little Pill. And the show actually made its way to 15 Tony nominations.
That's right.
Her service expanded internationally. So she's not just here in the US, and she's worked with celebrity clients such as Sidi Lorby, Cherkawi, who's a 2020 Tony Award nominee for Best Choreography, Film Choreography for Cyrano, Anna Karenina, choreographer for Beyonce's 2017 Grammy Award performance, and Beyonce and Jay-Z's The Carters. Ape Shift 2018 video filmed at the Louvre in Paris, and anime voice actress Lisa Ortiz. She did Pokemon, Sonic X, Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, these are some really big names. And she's worked with them as they courageously created, rehearsed, and performed across the globe. And as a master voice teacher, Diane embraces vocal techniques and body release work that increases range, breath, tone, and overall vocal health. She strongly believes in a mind, body, spirit approach to the art of performing voice, as well as exploring creative applications for enhancing focus, stylistic freedom, and clarity of intention, which is really where we're going to be focusing tonight. And to add more to this, Diane is also a highly experienced speech coach working with entrepreneurs, corporate executives, sales personalities, doctors and lawyers in developing and honing their vocal presence. Her speech enhancement techniques have allowed her clients to reshape and enhance not only their vocal quality, but their overall communication and style, leading to success and advancement of their goals. Diane, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Janelle. I'm honored and so joyful and thrilled to be here.
One of the most amazing things that I think is, personally, I've known you for so long. And when I was planning out this show, I didn't hesitate. I'm like, I've got to get Diane on this show, because one of the most important aspects for anyone who is trying to move the needle in their life is to really focus in and hone in on those areas that they're not really being intentful about. And, you hear the word voice coach, and I know I did many years ago. When I heard voice coach, I just automatically categorized that as someone who was working with, someone who's trying to learn how to sing. And I dismissed it as such. But over the years, I've realized that the way we speak, the way we communicate, it's more than just the sound that's coming out of our mouths when we open it. It's much deeper than that. And the way you work, the fact that you work with not just performers in terms of artists and dancers and, people who sing, you work with professionals, attorneys and doctors, and you're getting into the core of what it means to communicate intently and effectively. And I'm curious, Diane, how did you even get into this field? Like, how did you start in this?
A lot of trial and error. I started out as a very young performer. I was paid for my singing and my playing by the time I was 14. And I was this crazy vocal geek. As soon as I learned something, I'd teach everybody I knew. So I've been teaching and coaching, I would say, since I was 14. And because I had such a thirst for it, if something worked, I wanted to share it. And I sort of, throughout my performing life, because I performed for a long time, I always had a friend I was helping along, or because I play the piano, I would always play for someone. And then I discovered I was a composer, and I broke my heart on that wheel. We bet the farm, we self-produced, and I won't bore you with the story, but I was crushed when my show failed. I mean, literally crushed. And I just sort of pulled back for the first time in my life, artistically. And then one day somebody came up to me and said, "Oh my God, I love your music. And I know when I was doing your demo, I never sounded better. I have this big audition. Would you help me?" And I went, "Sure, fine."
Okay.
Yeah. And then I discovered in helping this one person, all of my grief started to go away about my failure. And I learned a lot about failure. I went, wow, I have now been honed into this new identity. It's the same person. I've been doing this all along. Here's a calling, and I love it. And word just got out. I mean, I went from one person to a full studio like overnight.
Can we talk about what you just said with failure? Because this is something I don't think we talk about enough.
Yeah.
There is this perception that failure is this thing to avoid at all costs.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you went intentionally looking for it, but because of it, that actually ended up being in your life a defining moment that changed the course of what you were doing. Not completely, because it's not that you left the world of music, but you forged a slightly different path in elevating so many others in music in a way that I think is probably even more powerful than when you're just, not that nothing's wrong with singing yourself, but you've become this amazing voice of knowledge that people could turn to.
Yeah. Well, because when people come to me, it's curious when somebody really knows how to sing well and they come to me. I go, "You sing so beautifully. I'd pay to hear you. Why are you here?" And they'd say, "Well, that's my veneer, and I've been doing it a long time, but I'm panicking out there. And the word on the street is you're really good at helping people with their anxiety." And I said, "Yeah, you're afraid to fail. It's going to be too much of an embarrassment to fail. And then I do this work of saying, look, you know what you're doing. You have to re-embrace it. You have to recommit. You know, there is a little bit of therapy involved." I said, "I don't know who said what to you when, but that's been percolating. And now you have this big role or this big opportunity. And now all of a sudden that little gremlin's this putting the seed of doubt." And then I just say, "Look, you know, it's okay to miss a note. It's okay, but you just get right back on the train. You fall off, you get right back on." And I remind them of things that they knew. Now, those are advanced people who are just wanting to explore, allowing their personal expression. And I get this with my corporate people. They know that they're holding themselves back. They know they get really tight when the focus is on them. They're brilliant. Everybody I work with in corporate world, super, super brilliant. And there's the people who overplay their moments, and there's the people who are afraid to have a moment. And I kind of bring people into the middle and say, look, embrace the unknown. You have to trust who you are. I give people homework on their identity. And then I say, and then I encourage them. You know, with corporate people, I make them read plays out loud with me, the poems, because it's not about the words. It's about the willingness to be yourself in front of someone else when the stakes are high.
This is so powerful. Like, this is so powerful because there is this book, one of my favorite books. It is called The Four Agreements. If you're listening, go to Amazon, go buy this book. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And in that book, he tells the story of a little girl who was singing to the top of her voice. And her mom had a headache, right? And her mom was not feeling well, had a headache, and she was stressed. And she's singing and she's having a lot of fun and joy. And she's, you know, and her mom, who's having a headache, you know, in her pain, you know, tells the girl, you know, you gotta stop singing. It's not good anyway. Right? Because she was frustrated, she was in pain. And this little girl stopped singing, and she never sang again after that. Because what she's internalized as a truth is that she is not capable of singing well, that people would like it.
And then there's the opposite. That little girl who shut up, she has a twin sister who said, "I'm going to continue singing."
Exactly.
But inside, in the mind, way back in, is going, "Shut up, be quiet. You shouldn't be singing."
Yes.
And those are the people that I get you to introduce you to your little gremlins. Because, you know, oftentimes we take first of all, it's really hard to get people to acknowledge how good they are at something. That's first. You have to acknowledge what are the stories?
But how can you? Can you talk about that? Like, how can someone acknowledge that they're good at something when there's this internal story that they're holding on to as a truth that they are not good, even though they are?
Right. Well, first of all, I remind them of, if they're professional, the job they have, the role they're currently doing, the people that look up to them. And then I say, why are you denying this part? You have to own what you do well, right? And then you have to aspire to do better.
Right.
You have to get that spirit, that fire in the belly to go, you know what? I have these great skills at my fingertips. Now I have to do better. Well, that's a subjective phrase. What does that mean? Does that mean if you're a performer, you commit to practicing even though you're bored with it? Does that mean that you don't dampen your light when you're on stage? That you're still generous, willing to give? If you're a lawyer or a doctor or a corporate person, does that mean, it's fraught? It's not the thing we do that's difficult for us. It's the environment we're in. And you have to be really courageous. There's going to always be somebody who thinks, who do you think you are? You're not that really good at that. There's always going to be somebody there. That's okay.
Always.
They're allowed to be there. You just have to know who you are, and you have to risk. I mean, my failure as a composer, I've been rewriting that story lately for me because it's a big pain.
Right.
At the time, I was a woman who created a show, wrote the music and the script and the lyrics. I was female, and this was 2021. Now, the young generation, they're cropping up all over the place. Then I was almost ashamed that I was the first. I was worried about being the first.
Being the first person to fail, or the first person?
Female to do, they call it a triple threat.
Okay.
Music, lyrics, and book, and it was my idea. And I created the idea.
Got it. Okay.
So that was a lot. Usually that was assigned to the male geniuses in the industry. And I was nobody. And I knew I had it. But, I couldn't move it along. It's outside of my control. I got a national-wide variety review written by a woman, and it was devastating for the show. Local reviews, we were sold out, standing ovations. So I got verified I was right. This show was worthy. But I got this conundrum, this wall that I couldn't get around. And I think that at that moment I went, I'm going to be wise here and put this on a back burner. And while I was putting it on a back burner, and I was sort of licking my wounds, as it were, I found a new path, a new inspiration. I wrote a couple more musicals after that one, but that was the baby. That was, that was the one that I loved so much. And so it's like I learned so much about failure. And anybody who has achieved anything knows about failure.
100%.
Embrace it. Go, come on, failure. What are you teaching me here now?
Yes.
What do I need to know about myself? What do I need to know about the team around me? That's another thing I work on with people in my studio.
Or what are the stories we're telling ourselves?
Who is your team? Be selective with them. If they are totally on board with you, don't try to win them over. You don't have time for that. You don't have to reject anybody. You just have to say, oh, your team, Diane Tauser, your team, Janelle Sam. You don't need a big team either. You need people that you know will be in your camp. Why? Because when we're out there and we're in the front, and when back to vocal presence, you are putting it all out there. When you're speaking, it is your identity. This is what I love about the voice. It just blows me away. I'm speaking my thoughts without any lag. Now, that doesn't mean we can't weigh our words. Of course we can. But when the blood is up, when you're inspired, it's your truth. It's coming out. Now, if you have a wall in front of your truth, people are trying to figure out who you are. You have this great idea. You're in a pitch meeting. You have got to be yourself. Because they don't know who you are if you're not yourself.
I find the parallels are also in the work I do as an advisor, right? I work with the owners of law firms, brilliant individuals. And yes, there's the technical aspect of running a business, the business plan and budget and variance reports. That's the technical aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But the most difficult part is the mental approach into what needs to be done and if it could be done, and having to work through the stories that they're telling themselves. And it is telling, it's the story about, there's a feeling of almost like imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But yes, I went to law school.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm actually very good at law, but am I really? And it inhibits the approach to the work that they have to do.
Right.
And that inhibition gets translated into the clients that they're attracting. And they can't see the dots and how it's connecting. And here you are talking about this wall. And the problem is, it's as though the wall is there. They're the ones who are actually holding it up, but they're not aware that they put it up and they're holding it up. They're not even aware that it is there. And they're like banging their heads against this invisible wall that they have the power to remove.
Well, or they might be aware, Janelle. Like, I have this wonderful young lawyer. She came to me. I met her socially. It was really interesting. I met her socially. I gave her my card. A couple months later, she called me up and she said, "Would you ever work with an amateur, a non-professional?" I said, "Do it all the time. I'd love it, of course." And she said, "Well, I always sang, and I just want to be a better singer. I'm a lawyer in my day work, and I need something to release stress. I love music. Would you work with me?" And I went, "Great, sure." And she did indeed have a lovely voice. We did some techniques. And then she wrote me an email and she said, "The techniques that you gave me for singing, and part of them is breath working with anxiety, is," she said, "I'm starting to use it at my firm. If a senior partner makes me nervous, now I'm on fast track for partner, but this person makes me nervous and I always kind of butt heads and I get nervous about it. I've started using your techniques. I start breathing lower, relaxing the throat. And because one of my things is you don't have to say it louder to be more intentional. It can be loud in the appropriate moment, but getting really quiet and really centered, you can control the room. You can control your experience of the event. And if you're having a good experience, you bring others with you.
I agree. I love this. We're going to take a short break and we are going to go a little bit deeper into that because you can hear the synergies. For anyone who's listening, you're sitting here and you're listening to this world-renowned voice coach, and you can hear how the work that she's doing, it's not just about, singing or speaking, but how you impact the environment around you, the presence that you bring to where you are. So stay with us and we'll be right back. Welcome back to GoalPost. This is Janelle Sam, and tonight I'm sitting here with Diane Tauser, world-renowned voice coach. And just before we went on break, Diane was talking about this attorney that approached her to work with her, and how in working with this attorney, she's been able to bring that presence to the law firm that she's at. And Diane, so tell me, and for those who are listening, I really want you to hear how it's the change in the presence and being more intentional of how she's delivering her message that has had the biggest impact. What would you say was the biggest impact for this attorney?
Well, she realized very early on that that the work that we were doing together was transforming elements from within. Like, she had talked to me, when I speak, I get really shy. Now, she's an attorney, but so she in court, she knows how to be there. And in, but in I would say backstage, back at the firm,
Right.
there would be either really, I'm gonna get it and be in your face, or there would be a quiet. And she referenced it as holding back.
Okay.
And so we started talking about, you don't have to be the loudest. You can still say something that is appropriately contentious or confrontational, because that happens every day in our professional life. But
And personal.
you can quiet it down. You don't have to enact it. You could just breathe, relax, and say the words that you need to say. And she, long story short, over the course of 2 years, she is now one of the youngest people in her international firm that made partner.
Wow. Wow.
And she just had a couple of big wins in court. And her senior partner, that was always on her side, wrote her an email, and she shared it with me saying, I thought you'd be proud. And he said, you did a great job, fluid, credible, responsible, confident, command of the materials, friendly, and able to connect. I don't think it gets a better review.
And what's really important to note about that message, he didn't reference the tone of her voice.
No.
He referenced.
That's really brilliant of you to notice that. I didn't even notice that.
He didn't say, oh, it was high pitched, it was low. It was, these are the things that you think about when you think about voice coaching. But he is commenting on what was received in her communication and delivery of her message.
Right.
The impression that she left when she spoke.
Well, the drawing in of the breath and the using because, it isn't just an idea. I make them work it with me.
Right.
Like, a lot of people get excited about their ideas and go fast and furious. And to get them to slow down is a bit of a discipline, right? You got to get them to breathe, slow it down. No, slow it down. No, slow it down. And you get it to a nice pace. The voice starts to sound beautiful. And they immediately will say, I feel uncomfortable. I feel false. And well, of course you do. It's new. It's different. But I always make people record their sessions with me. And I ask them to record themselves when they practice. And they can make the same assessments. You start training people to look out for certain things. Right? And so, hey, you're just rushing your words because you're afraid that person is going to disagree with you. That's okay. They can disagree with you. It's your message. It doesn't have to be headbutting. It's your message. And when people start practicing and listening back, they go, oh, I don't sound weird. I sound confident. Right. I sound like, and also I'm easier to listen to, And I work with a lot of people, in the United States, we have so many accents. Oh my Lord.
I have one. We all do, actually. Everybody
you have a beautiful accent.
Everyone has
in love
an
with your accent. But people from the Midwest, they hold everything back, and then if they get shy, and then who wants to hear them, right? And so I go, you don't have to stick with that. And they go, I know, but I've been this way my whole life. And I went, so you don't have. That's why you're here. Your spirit knows you don't have to stick with that.
You could make a deliberate choice to change the
Yes.
capacity of the human spirit to change something about us that we might have had all of our lives.
Right. And reinventing, restructuring your story, right? It's very interesting about my failure with my show. I got so much business because that was one of my creds. So like when people were looking me up and they saw I was a produced composer. So all the money that I thought I had lost came back in. I had to re-earn it, but it came back into my studio. And I went, so nothing is lost. And I learned a lot about, because, if I think about performers for a minute, they're so petrified of making a mistake or not being enough. They are so more than enough. That's the first thing I say to them.
And it's not just performers, Diane, right? And I think that's the whole thing. It's not just performers. You work with professionals as well.
Yes.
So many people are afraid to fail. But you know what I wonder? Is it really that they are afraid to fail? Or are they really afraid that what life could be like if they actually did succeed?
Oh, yeah. I really agree with that, very much so. But when you're talking about failure, first you have to identify it. Because people that we're talking about, people that are listening, the really strong entrepreneur and people with fire in the belly, I don't think they'd characterize themselves as fearful or failures. But you have to entertain. We've all had failures. We've all been the cowardly lion, these big personalities.
Yes.
We've all had that as well. And so then if you acknowledge it, then you don't want to control the beasts within. You want to use them. You know when to bring out the big personality because you're entertaining. You're looking at all the children, as it were. You're looking at the shy violet within you. I work with Broadway performers, the shyest people in the world in real life.
Wow.
It's classic.
And big personality on stages.
Big personality on stage. And you go, they must be like that 24/7, and they're not. And one of the things that I know that I provide is compassion. I go in there and I say, I don't know how you do it 8 times a week. You're amazing. You have to know how amazing you are. Are you cracking on your high note right now? Yeah, we can fix that. But you have to recognize how amazing you are. And they'll burst into tears because it's been such a long time that someone has affirmed them. But the most important person was themselves.
Yes. You said something that is very poignant, which is for the person who's listening to this show right now. This is someone who, when you look at the resume, have accomplished a lot in life. There is nothing that screams or shouts failure, right? And this is why I'm so intentful about every guest I have on this show, because what I want for the listener to be able to see, it's to say, okay, I can level up, but in order to do so from where I am right now, I have to be aware of those areas that require a little bit more introspection, because it's easy to hide it and live in this persona where there's not a whole lot of purpose or joy in it, but it looks good, sounds good. So I'm just going to do that. There's a hollowness behind it.
Yeah.
And to peel away some of those layers. Right? I mean, personally, we look at our own failures. Now, for me, this is no longer any big secret. I have it on social media. I made a TikTok video that went super viral with like millions of views.
And so beautiful. It was such a beautiful story. And the fact that you were sharing it with the world was just
But amazing. I had to own it. It took me a while to own that, because I looked at that part of my life in shame. And that is not something that I was able to really acknowledge as part of my story. And the reason why I was able to do other things because of it, and to embrace it as part of who I am, because I was hiding it. It took until it's only when I decided I'm going to embrace this. And now look at what other stories I'm telling myself that is keeping me back in this hole of not being able to be the best that I could be, literally. And I'm still growing and I'm still learning. I'm seeking out even more personal development, because now I'm aware of so many things that I could change personally. Right. But when you've reached a certain level, depending, and you just said it earlier, who's on your team?
Yes.
right? Are you surrounded by people who are looking at you where you are and like, oh, you're amazing, you're great, you're amazing, you're great. And the individual who's receiving that thinks that they have to live up to that. I have to be amazing, I have to be a great, even if there are areas that isn't. And there's a fear of acknowledging that part that isn't so great and that isn't so amazing because of the perception we think others would have of us.
Yeah.
And where do we go to be able to say, this part of me is not so perfect, it's not so great? And to be vulnerable and be open to the feedback of how to use tools to make you better in that space of whatever it is. Because I feel like it's harder. The more you get accomplished and the more that you have external validation for what you're accomplished, it makes it harder to want to find areas that could be improved, because it would be an acknowledgement or some sort of feeling like you really didn't accomplish what you did, that you're not that great. And who wants to think that about themselves?
Yeah.
But we do, don't we?
We do.
And you find that in your work?
I do. It's sort of like, there's two things that come to mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
The voice that says, who do you think you are?
Yes.
That is stealing your accomplishment from you. So there's that voice that pushes you not to take a moment and go, oh my God, 3 years ago, I was sitting in my kitchen and I had this idea, and now I have a business and 2 employees. Or 3 years ago, I couldn't sing 8 notes and now I have a job, as a performer, whatever it is. But there's always more to do, more to get, more to prove. Have those moments where you say, look at what I've accomplished right this moment. That is going to feed. The second thing is reinvention. The moment you said, I'm going to turn shame into story, which I loved you for, by the way. I always loved you, but I really loved you for that.
Thank you.
I showed everybody. The minute you did that, and I was so proud and amazed, I went, okay, this happened to her and she went out and got her MBA. All right, the bar has been raised. But at that moment, you reinvented yourself. When I was coming off my failure and I went, okay, people want me to do this, I said, okay, it's reinvention time. And I have to say, well-renowned, yes, but there's been big dips.
Yeah.
You learn a lot in humility. There was one moment I thought, maybe I need to close my doors. And I knew I had to ask for help. And I was so proudful. I'm not going to let my colleagues and people in the industry know I need help. I'm not going to. I'm this person. I'm not going to go down. And I then got over myself and put my big girl pants on. And I started making calls. And to a person, and I was really honest with them. And to a person, people would say, you don't even need to ask. I didn't know you needed people. I thought you were turning away people. I'd been wanting to send tons of people to you. And then you tell your story. And I walked away from every one of those calls. And I went, what an idiot I am. Of course, I'm somebody who's going to always help. Why would I deny that from that reality for other people? And how, my God, my pride was keeping me. I could have had more business a year prior. So being honest. So that moment was a true transformation, reinvention.
That is. Diane,
and then like a year later, I have people on Broadway, Jagged Little Pill, because I got over myself and my idea of myself, which was being driven by not allowing myself to know what I had accomplished.
That is still something I'm working on. I just before the two of us got on, I had a call earlier today with someone, she reached out to me. We went to Cornell together, but she graduated a year later. And we met while there at school, and she wanted to reconnect. And she's working on this business project. And she asked me this question. She's like, Janelle, do you celebrate your successes.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm going to tear up because
Aw.
there is always looking for the next thing to do because there's something to prove. And this is my internal story. And this is where I have to work and develop. I'm like, wait, I went to college. And when I graduated, I never walked. I never had a party. I had to work. So I worked. I had kids to take care of. I had to do the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah.
And so, I would have these accomplishments. And then even when I graduated with my MBA, it was the middle of the pandemic. So I didn't walk. I didn't have a party. I still haven't celebrated it. I just got announced, with this big announcement was just made, top 50 leaders of Houston 2022 women leaders. And someone's like, are you going to celebrate that? And I had to take pause and I have to realize, well, what's that internal story that I'm telling myself? Do I think I'm not good enough to celebrate?
Wow.
And where does that come from?
Well, what we're talking about right now is it's a part of that triumvirate. Who do you think you are? Which is linked to imposter syndrome. It's it's there is a fear-based anxiety to it. Because I think a lot of people were always afraid of being vulnerable and things going away. So if I stop and I acknowledge the present moment, am I going to screw everything up? If I don't drive myself to the next, am I going to lose what I've accomplished? And, there's no guarantee in this life.
Oh my God, that is so
You just
powerful.
have to be willing to be honest. That's what I learned just recently. I learned it 4 years ago and I'm grateful every moment. Don't be, I had to admit I was failing. That's how I interpreted it. I wasn't failing. I wasn't communicating. I was not failing. I was not communicating.
A shift in perspective. You know what? There is so much more for us to unpack here. We're going to take a very short break and then we're going to return.
GoalPost. Now your host, Janelle Sam.
So thank you for staying with us. We are back with GoalPost. This is Janelle Sam, your host, and I'm sitting here with Diane Tauser, world-renowned voice coach, dear friend of mine. And right before the break, we left off, talking about, the issue of, or the concern that if we stop to celebrate some of our milestones, not milestones, but accomplishments, that there might be a fear that it would go away. And this was triggering for me, right? Because in speaking with Diane, I know Diane for quite a long time. We've been friends for about 18 years. And it's not as though we haven't seen the progression of each other over the years. And to have this conversation where she is a voice coach, but it's more than just the voice. It's everything that goes into the presence of a person, the mindset, the thoughts that leave an impression on others with whom this person is communicating with, whether it's through speech or song or dance, whatever it is, that she helps with that presence. And I'm having a bit of a moment here, Diane,
Well, be in gratitude for it, number one, that you've had a moment of insight into something you already know. We always get more information on what we know, right? Always, we come back around to the same problems, the same emotions, but each time we do, we come back and we're wiser about it. And if you get really curious, you can move beyond. There is a bit of what I'm talking about is expression. You used the word presence. Mm-hmm. And for me, presence is de rigueur. You got to have it. People have companies. People are striving to be excellent in their field. They have the fire in the belly. But then they also have the big gremlin of doubt.
Yes.
Who do I think I am?
Yes.
And then we push past. We say, "Be quiet, gremlin," and we do more and more and more. And I ask people, I ask this of myself, slow it down for a minute. Slow it down for a minute. Like I had to learn how to calm my stuff down. And I teach this when I started getting celebrities. I would get really nervous. Oh my God, am I going to be good enough? And I had to go, wait a minute, slow it all down, back it all up. This is just an artist who needs help. You may or may not be able to help them. You'll see. Have the first session, calm down, allow them just to be people. Because to be a celebrity, it is a role. We all play different roles. One of the first things that I like to do with people is strip away, I'm anybody. I'm a woman who has a passion, who has information. It may or may not work for you. I know it will, but you know what I mean? It's not about I am somebody big and you're coming to me and paying a lot of money. But no, I am a person who's been down a path, has been where you've been, right? And we're going to slow it all down and we're going to go right to basics. Now, my experience with you as a person, I have just adored you from the moment I met you. And you've always sort of brushed aside. I'd go, oh my God, you're so amazing. You do this and this. You always go, because for you, you can do a zillion things at once really well. But then you challenged yourself to take on big challenges, a big identity shift, right? You were wife, mother, really smart, right? And now you're MBA, and now you're a business advisor. You're creating software. I mean, what you're doing so many things. And now you have this podcast. And there's so many beautiful accomplishments. And just to take the time, give yourself a bubble bath and just go luxuriate and go, it's okay to be really good at a lot of things. I'm a multi-talented person. I play 4 instruments. I sing well. I act. I teach. I'm a domestic goddess. I love to cook. I love to design. And when I was younger, I used to go, I have to be one thing. I have to be one thing. Be good at really one thing. And now I go, no. Be all things. Some things I'm better at than others. And just that's part of being the honesty. So when someone works with me, the very first thing I do is I give them breathing techniques. I teach them about anatomy because it's important to know how your instrument actually really anatomically works. And then it's pretty simple. We breathe, we express. What's in our way is the stories we've told ourselves, the stories we've allowed others to tell about us.
And then we've accepted that. We've accepted
We've
what they've told us.
Those stories,
Yes.
And if you're a strong woman of my generation, you've heard the word bitch more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
You've had people in your face about with the who do you think you are outrage. Well, I'm the one paying your paycheck. I'm the one producing this. I'm the one doing that's in those days, right? But those stories hurt you. And then I had to retell the stories to me with compassion, not just for myself, but for the other parties. Because if you have compassion, no matter how ill-advised people around you might be, if you have compassion for them, you don't give them power. And how does this affect the voice? If you've been in a situation where you got really frightened, maybe somebody came up behind you, someone was looking in a window, you might notice that the throat closes. Sometimes you yell, but if you're truly frightened, things go like this and nothing comes out.
Right.
So if you're really, I work with people who are petrified of their nerves, and I go, embrace your nerves, invite them in, because what are the nerves about? Being excited, being happy to go into this meeting and hoping you're prepared as you'd like. You never know how a meeting's going to go,
Right.
right? You have ideas, you practice, but then you have to let it go and say it'll be what it'll be. I've done my best in my practice, right? I've stood in my bathroom mirror and I've told my speech, or I did my pitch, or I sang my song. But then it's going to be what it's going to be. And you're left with one thing, you, who you are. You know, and it's a journey. I think we're all on a journey to be comfortable with ourselves.
I
There
agree.
are
I agree with that.
techniques, right?
I agree with that. And it's a journey because every time you've reached one level, a new level, it uncovers something else that you didn't have,
Right.
that
Right.
didn't come up before, right? New level of a new demon, right?
Right.
To use your words. And which is why it's so important to have the constant stream of guidance, of help, personal development to help you grow through it. Which is why, you know, for me now, and for anyone who's listening, it's so important because every time you grow, you're going to find a new devil.
Well,
and,
or
and you're
a
not
new one
necessarily going to
reveals
be equipped
itself.
to deal with
Oh,
that.
great. You're at this level now.
That's
Now I
right.
can show myself.
And I don't think you reach the next level until you've conquered the devil at the level that you're at.
Ooh,
Right?
that's
You
a
have
good
to, you
one.
don't, you cannot. And actually, this is even in business. Like when I work with my, you know, with my members, with my clients, they cannot, the firm will only grow as far as they grow. And every time they grow, which is why a lot of the work isn't on the technical side, it's on the mindset side, because wherever they are at in the mindset is where their firm will stick and grow. It will stagnate. But to move to the next level, it's uncomfortable. It's almost painful at times. To now
grow
address,
is always painful.
It's painful. Right? And then they have to learn a new way of approaching, of thinking. The way you run a firm at $0 to $250 is one way. When you want to cross that barrier and you want to level up to hit the 500, that's a different way of thinking. You want to make it to 1 million, it's very, very different. And the problem is your circle has to change around you because you need to get advice from people or help from people who could help you through the level you're on.
Right.
But the people who help you through the level you're on may not be the people to take you up to the next level. You might need somebody else to do that. And it's this process and it's this journey and it's uncomfortable when you're going through it. And, you know, I'm talking to you and you said it like to be okay with being good at a lot of things. And I have to think personally of what are the stories I'm telling myself? Why do I feel as though if I acknowledge that I could be good at many things that I am pretending to be somebody I'm not? If I acknowledge it, that is. There's one thing, right? I could be doing
because
it.
Who you are is way more important than the person you're trying to create.
Right.
I mean, it's so true. You are more than you can imagine. Another thing, artists, I mean, we understand that what we express, we don't get to hear. We don't get to really know the result. We have to rely on expression. So singing, if I can just talk about singing or orating, it's the art of projection.
Okay.
Guess what happens when you project? Oh, it's over there. It's no longer stuck in my head where I can monitor it and play with it. But over there is genius. Here is control. So we're always, control is a tricky friend. It can be really good for you at times, but it can really bite you in the butt.
Oh, yes.
If you control. So it's always that balance of learning to let others control certain aspects is really important. I mean, so you can focus on the thing that you're really good at. I mean, I play the piano really well, but took me a long time to get over my ego. And I went, I need an accompanist so I can really stop, co-performing with my student so I can give them my whole attention. And then I gave over and, whoever I hired may be better or worse than me, but I trust them to support the situation. With Zoom, through COVID, I was one of the few people that my business increased because I had been doing Skype lessons for a long time. I already had an outreach outside of New York. So with COVID and the platform of Zoom, wow, things really grew. But what was really great is having karaoke tracks. I don't have to worry about the music at all. So the one thing I wanted to control 10 years ago, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Let somebody else do it.
You could coach my attorneys, because that is one of the mind shift changes that we have to coach them through, which is when they're starting off a firm, they're doing everything. But then they want to grow. And I'm like, the only way to grow is you have to hire. And there's this fear.
Well, yeah.
There's a fear of delegating work to somebody else.
Yeah.
And, I have to coach that. It's a mindset shift of, I'm like, you won't grow unless you actually hire. Like, you're going to be stuck where you're at because you're going to be the bottleneck. You can only do so much in a day. And if you don't hire someone,
the first person she needs to hire is someone like you, who is brilliant at managing people. So she needs to hire somebody.
No. They need to hire other attorneys. I'm not an attorney.
No,
right? I can't do the work, right? So I coach and give that advice. You need to hire. You have to trust another attorney to do the work for your firm. And this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks for the attorneys that are now starting off, or in that stage of growth. They can't get over there's a fear that it's going to be messed up or something's going to go wrong. And, because of the need to control.
Yeah.
And then it's a mind shift. And when they get it and they realize, whoa, the more they want to grow, the more they have to hire. The two go hand in hand. You have to delegate more and more, meaning that their time is now being freed up to do what is the highest and best use of their time in order to deliver more and more value to their clients.
It's really good working with, and I've been very lucky. I get very smart people come to me, find me,
Mm-hmm.
And what I really love is insisting on certain things in the beginning that are basics, and then teaching them how to coach themselves in the basics and using their natural intelligence, and then they start connecting dots. And this conversation we're having are the dots that get connected. You mean I was really tight in my throat and I was sort of trying to sound like a man when my normal male voice is quite nice and more current, and I don't have to pretend to be Uncle Harry. He was the guy in control.
Right.
You end up finding out what works, what is good. You need people to reflect, and you need some basics. And it's good for all of us to review what we do well, what we need work on. And I think it's an art to listen to your paid professionals. Like when I find people not listening, I go, are you still getting something from this? And they go, oh, yes, my God. And I'm going, then stop teaching over me. Let me help you.
Yes.
I don't want to say this again.
Yes.
Let me help you.
Yes.
Jot it down. Make a mental note.
Yes.
But let's not fight on this because there's so many other things to share with you. Let's get over this little hurdle.
Yes.
It's kind
of like going to the doctor and telling the doctor, well, this is how you're going to treat me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I use the analogy I think you remember it. I think I was baking. Not yet, actually. I was not.
My God.
When we first met. I didn't start yet. I really started when my daughter had turned 3.
Right.
And when you and I met, I was pregnant with her. But
Yeah.
anyway, so when I had her, and then, over the years, then I started the baking, which of course you saw because we're connected via social media. And when I got to the point where people were asking me, they were ordering cakes, the conversation that we had would be, if someone wanted a cake, I'd consult with them and say, okay, who is this cake going to be for? Tell me something about this person, because with a custom cake, there's no pan, and it's tailored to the person. It's an experience. And, if they are like, okay, the person likes sports, or I would come up with a concept and I would tell them, this is what I would deliver. But in no instances could they tell me how to bake the cake.
Mm.
I'm like, you're not in a position to tell me how to bake that cake.
Yeah.
Because I'm the professional here. Here's what you're in a position to do. You're in a position to tell me the feeling, the overall look that the cake should have, the flavors that you want, but the technical delivery of what goes into the process of putting the flour and the eggs together and how that's all me, because I'm the pro.
Mm-hmm.
And to learn to trust that, because if there was ever someone who's coming to tell me, well, this is how you're going to bake the cake at this temperature, then I would tell them, okay, then I think you need to work with someone else, or you need to bake this cake on your own.
Exactly. That's a good way. It's a great analogy when we're trying to grow as a business person
and deliver the best experience and the best result for the person, right? Because as a coach, if someone's coming to you and they're working with you, right, they're coming to you so that they can have an improved expression of who they are, whether that be through speech or song.
Right.
And they're not, in order to grow, there might be ideas in the head of how you're going to do that for them. But because they're not the professionals, they have to be open to how you teach and how you coach and how you deliver your value to them, and trust that the outcome that they are paying for is what's going to happen, right? That's going to come to pass. But isn't it hard? Like sometimes we come to you, somebody will come to you and tell you, well, you're not doing it right. Aren't you supposed to do X, Y, Z?
No, they never say that to me, but they enact it. One of the things, like you would think in good oration and singing, getting a beautiful mellifluous voice, it's all about the throat. That's what amateurs would think. It's not about the throat. The throat is deep brain operated. It's what we used to call automatic. It's an automatic function, just like breath is. But we clever beings, we can work on many levels of consciousness to impact this. But really, good voice is a full-bodied sport. You have to be grounded. You have to allow the breath to do its job. You can't be pushing air on it and straining external neck muscles. And that's usually the habits that people who are having problems with their voice come into my studio with. And then that's what I mean. I give them anatomy, and this is a platform for other things. And I say, your tongue has to work. Your jaw has to be loose. You have to be willing to say syllables and consonants really quickly. And don't worry about whether you're doing it right at first. Just get it all reoriented. And then we connect the dots. And then all of a sudden, they get the aha moments of, oh, I'm being myself, or I feel more confident, or, oh my God, I have 5 more notes I never had.
Wow.
But then they double down back into the throat. And I go, well, there you are again. Now you're trying to prove that this could also work. And that's when I say there are coaches in this city who work that way. I don't believe in it. It wasn't my training. I had very famous performer teachers who taught me, mentored me. I believe in what I know. There are other ways to approach, but I believe in what I know. And I have a history of helping people. It kind of always works.
Right.
And right now I go, I know this isn't your idea, but it works. You're here for me to show you how it could work differently.
Right.
And to your advantage. So if you're sitting, thinking, I get a sore throat. A lot of times corporate people talk about getting sore throats, scratchy. And I said, that's because you're thinking here. And you got to think everywhere. You have to allow your ideas to live. You just double down aggressively on a few things. You have to open up.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll return right after this. I am Janelle Sam. I'm an entrepreneur, an executive management advisor, a mentor, an influencer. I'm here to help you set clear paths and goals to help change your life. You'll hear intimate stories from successful people about how they overcame enormous challenges to be better leaders, spouses, parents, and members of the community. Join me for GoalPost every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern on allrealradio.com. That's www.allrealradio.com. So we're back. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to GoalPost. I'm your host, Janelle Sam, and I've been having this really amazing conversation with my dear friend, Diane Tauser, who is a world-renowned voice coach extraordinaire. She's just worked with some of the biggest names in entertainment and also works with professionals who are looking to improve their expression, their presence in their professional lives, as well as in their personal lives. And so we left off, talking about all the different levels that we tend to go through and the demons we face there and having to not then, you can't progress until you've conquered and slayed the demon at the level that you're at, whatever that is, right? And we've kind of talked about the fact that that could be the stories we're telling ourselves, that we've told ourselves, or that we've heard and we held to be true, that keeps us from expressing fully who we are in any given moment, to be powerful, to be memorable. We go through our lives, and for the listener, for anyone who's listening to this, the purpose is to think, is there a way to be more, to have more intent in developing your presence in the office, with your friends, with your family, with investors, with whoever you communicate with? How can you do that? And, Diane and I have been having this conversation. And so if this is something you're interested in, you have to learn from those who can teach you, right? Because we were just talking about the fact that, I use the example of baking a cake, and someone can say, hey, I want, a specific type of cake. You can't tell me, right? If I'm the professional, I use techniques that are amazing. So when you get a cake, it is moist, it is tasty, it's not overly sweet. The design is exactly what you want. And you end up with an experience that just makes you feel even more amazing for having received it. And Diane does that with her coaching, that she takes you to the next level. And earlier in the show, she read this amazing, the feedback that one of her clients got in her firm, being one of the youngest partners, to have made that position after having worked with Diane and becoming more intentful with her presence.
Well, let's just clarify one thing. I'm not the reason why she made partner. She's brilliant. But I was instrumental. I'm a cog in the wheel of getting her to allow herself to express her brilliance, her nature, her energy, her humor. You start making a whole package. If you're clamping it down, this is where the technical end comes in for me, is when people are shutting it down, but they're still presenting.
Right.
It's kind of like a false thing. But when we open up and we go, well, here goes, take that deep breath, really express. Yeah, it takes practice, right? First, there's the will. On my website, dianetauser.com, there is a lot of mind, body, spirit, commitment to mind, body, spirit. It isn't a catchphrase. So, first the body, you train it, then you have to train the mind. And the mind and the body, they converse with each other.
Yes.
Right? So if the body's ready to do something, you've been practicing, and then the mind comes in and goes, oh, let's try something different.
Oh.
Train craft.
Okay.
Or now you got the mind and the body working together, and the spirit is just not into it. I don't feel like it today. So we have to train the spirit as well. And that's where intention comes in.
Right.
You can say the same set of words, and through intention mean completely different effects. Oh, I really love that sweater. I really love that sweater. What is your intention? What is it that you're saying? Are you saying I really love it? Are you saying I really want to rip it off your body and it'll be mine? Or are you saying, oh my God, you have the worst style whatsoever? And it could be very subtle. So these things we're doing to ourselves, right? I'm going to go in and I have this big presentation. I want to impress a senior partner. I want to get a job in that firm and leave the firm I'm in. I want to be an expert in my field, but I can't deal with my fear. Like, I know what I know, but I'm too worried I'm not smart enough. Right? And so it's a constant revelation, techniques, practice, knowing yourself. I get people to journal about that this week. You don't have to share it with me. If you want to share it, great. But find out what this is about, right? It's layers of an onion. We're so complex.
And isn't that amazing, right? For everything that Diane is talking about, it's not, I don't think it's the first thing anyone would think of who hasn't given intent into improving their presence, would think that that's part of the training and the coaching that you'd receive. Journaling, how are the two connected? And so you're listening here, if you've been following the show, you're listening. I'm not going to leave you without some sort of resource. And I wanted to keep checking out the website. You're going to find me on janellesam.com. Diane does workshops, right? And she does workshops that's targeted for the professional, for the person who's like, I want to improve the way I convey who I am by getting the tools and the awareness of maybe what are those internal stories that's just keeping me from really expressing the full, authentic expression of myself. Like, what is that? And Diane does these workshops. And so there's a few of them, and keep checking the website because you'll see the dates and the times that you could attend some of these workshops, because her work, and just so you know, Diane is sought after, right? She's not easy to get. I feel really lucky that I got her tonight because we go way back. We've got the friendship, and so she's here. And if you've taken anything from what she said, like, it's an amazing gift. She's gifting us today. She works with celebrities. She works with really high net individuals. And so these workshops, they're designed to make what she does more accessible to everyone. And so I highly encourage you, check it out. Go to the website, janellesam.com, and you will find, what the dates are and how you can attend based on your schedule, because they're really, really fabulous. But, back to what Diane is talking about, I have found that, I've referred friends to Diane who are not performers. I know performers, but most of the people that I know are all professional, high performing people. And they've had nothing but amazing things to say about how you've worked. Diane, tell me, what would you say is the most challenging obstacle that, especially when you work with professionals um, in a corporate setting, not performers, but with a corporate, what would you say is a common thread that you come across that you always have to focus in on that they're not even aware of?
I think they're not aware of is holding back. Holding back. Sometimes it's being smart. Sometimes it's just a habit. Sometimes to get the thing you want to get from the person you want to get it from, you have to risk. So playing it safe, holding back.
When you say holding back, like, can you go a little deeper with that?
Well, if someone comes to you and says, I'd really like your input on this, but you have a whole history in your mind, what this person is looking to hear. But you know this person needs to hear something else. That's an edit or a holdback. Sometimes it could be very smart. Sometimes it could be you're just afraid of sticking your neck out. Now this starts to weigh on expression, on originality of thought, on intention and presence, right? So, people who are in high-end positions, they have to keep it as fresh as artists. You have to keep refreshing what you know. And you do have to take risks. If someone is coming to you for your input, now, if you think they're a saboteur, that's another thing.
Right.
But if they're coming in and you know from past conversations or being around a table, you guys think things very differently. You have to be willing to tell your truth. And it's the chicken or the egg. Not telling your truth or not sticking your neck out or not risking at the right moment can impact your instrument, which impacts your expression.
And you're not aware of it, right? Is that what it is? Like, you're just not even aware it is. And you come across dull and dry and not interesting.
And then you get techniques, how to open the body, how to open the mind, how to open possibility. And then you find it first it's a risk, but it went well.
Right.
It went well. They were open to it. You still got back to, but I think this and I think that. But they appreciated that you were willing to share what you know, right? And your point of view. And I think as human beings on this planet, we're very challenged right now to be authentic, to be honest. A lot of doors are opening, but at the same time, we're all afraid of being on opposite ends of the spectrum. But it is the world we live in. You have to be yourself.
Right.
If I'm not going to be myself, like when I prepared for this podcast, I said, oh my God, what am I going to say? I could say so many things, blah, blah, blah. And I practiced the things, and none of them we touched upon, by the way. So I practiced a whole slew of stuff. And then at the last minute, I went, okay, I took that nice grounding breath. I embraced really being excited rather than being fearful. I went, I'm really excited to be speaking with my good friend, Janelle. She's so much fun. She's so smart. She's so empowered. And then I said, and it'll be what it'll be.
Right.
I'm going to tell my truth. And so far, I've really enjoyed telling my truth. And it's interesting. You live a moment and you're always edified.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really important to me. I said that 3 or 4 times. Don't you find that, Janelle?
It's amazing. I don't know. I ended up crying, right? I just had one of those.
Well, this is Michael, my husband. He has this thing when he'll say, how did your day go? And I went, couple people cried, and you go, oh, so a good one.
Because it's powerful when you have these big breakthrough moments, because there's so much more to our lives. Instead of just coasting along and thinking, okay, maybe she speaks well because she just knows how to speak well, as opposed to, I would love to speak better. Mm-hmm. Or I'd like to be able to be a more effective communicator so that I can get more of what I'd like to get out of life, because the way we speak before we've opened our mouth, it's the perception, the self-story, the stories we've told ourselves about what we're about to say, that's going to make a difference in how you are perceived, received, right? To get what you want. Right. And so, but this is something that doesn't have to be left to chance. You can get help.
Yeah. And you can here's the big message. Baby steps.
Yes.
Has a huge impact right away.
Yes.
You don't have to be an expert for once.
Right.
You can take it baby steps, enjoy it, have a nice cry, have a nice journal, it's the journey.
It's the journey. And in the journey, you're uncovering and slaying demons. You don't realize that that's what you're actually doing, because you're starting to take baby steps and becoming comfortable in being more purposeful in the direction of your life.
Yeah.
Communicating is so important. So important.
One thing that a message I like to share as someone in my time of life is enjoy the time of life you're in.
Yes.
It never comes again. It's a beautiful thing. Where I am right now is a very beautiful thing. But when I look back, the wise woman looks back at the crazy young artist who, where do you think I got all this wisdom? And I look back and I go, oh, honey, if you had just stopped for a minute and just embraced what you just did, embrace, how many compliments you got, embraced how you got a brand new whatever.
Right.
And as a producer, because I not only wrote, but produced, I had some really scary pitch meetings. Right. And the ones where I just let it hang out and say, honestly, we're virgin at this, but the product is great. Honestly, we don't know what we're doing as producers, but we have this amazing show. It's how we got into the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts. The guy said, you're so honest. It was so refreshing. And we love your music. So yeah, come on. Right.
I love this. Yes.
Again, it's that risk thing.
It is. It is. Well, this has just been an incredible evening. I always enjoy just having a conversation with you, Diane. Doesn't matter what it is. I think we just have this flow that happens that is just so amazing. And for anyone you're listening to, really the amazing Diane, you can check her out. Tell everyone the many ways that they can find you, Diane.
Well, they can find me at dianetauser.com. And I think it's Diane Tauser all the way in social.
Okay, perfect. So you'll find her there, but check out the website, janellesam.com, and I'll have the link. You'll see her bio, who she is, more about the workshops that she does, that, if you cannot attend in person, that she has webinars as well. So, check it out. And it's one of those decisions that if you make, that it's well worth it. The difference is felt immediately. This is not something that you have to do for a year before you start seeing results. You start practicing the techniques that she gives and you start using it immediately. The journey that she takes you through is not one that is just, making sounds in front of the mirror. It's connecting the mind, the body, and your spirit. The journey of being centered in who you are so that you're authentic and relaxed in the delivery of your presence. Thank you for joining us, Diane, for being with me tonight. for talking with me, for telling about, the work you've done. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm really, 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 really happy that you're here with me tonight.
Oh, thank you, Janelle. I feel the same way. I had such a blast. It was so great. This is such my jam. I love talking about the whole beautiful experience of being humans.
Yes. Oh my
Being
gosh.
humans and being extraordinary and being excellent and honoring ourselves.
Yes. Thank you. Well, I'll be right back after this break. Thank you for joining us today. If you've been listening to us, I had an amazing conversation with Diane Tauser, a voice coach extraordinaire to the stars. And we spoke a lot about being intentional with your presence and how speaking is just part of the process, the words coming out of your mouth, but it's being centered in who you are and your authenticity, in the stories that we tell ourselves, and how that could sometimes block us from actually being as powerful and as dynamic as we're capable of. It's not about screaming or shouting and being loud. It's not about whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's about being true to who you are and being pure in the delivery of your message so that it's received openly. Listen to the show on allrealradio.com. There are new shows every Sunday there. And then every Monday, the video is posted on YouTube, on Spotify as well, so that you can hear it, listen to it on the go, watch the video. If you're watching it on YouTube, you're able to see pictures. It's a little bit more dynamic, so that you can see who's actually talking. But if you want to hear it first, just tune in, dial in, check out my website, janellesam.com, to find out more information about the workshops that are offered. If you're really serious about moving the needle towards achieving your goals and hitting that goalpost in the story and the journey of your life. This is Janelle Sam, and thank you for listening to GoalPost. I'm Janelle Sam. Join me on GoalPost as we hear from Kevin Mayer, a preeminent trial attorney at Norton Rose Fulbright. Hear Kevin's story about driving himself to the ER.
And I was in the middle of my rugby career. I hit a guy who's much, much bigger than me, and it actually drove my elbow through my side, and I severed a portion of my kidney. I was hospitalized for 3 days while they waited for me to stop bleeding. But as soon as I got discharged from the hospital, I drove back home, and I went out and took a walk down to the gym and lifted.
And the importance of taking care of your body.
Being fit and in shape and having that appearance of an athlete who is in shape has always been a part of my identity. And it's an important part of my identity. It's how I carry myself. It's how I perceive myself. It's how others perceive me as well.
What advice does Kevin have for us?
The only way you're going to succeed in this, or frankly in any profession, is by performing. You have to be able to do the job and do it well, or opportunities are simply going to run out.
Join me for GoalPost every Sunday night at 7 p.m. at www.allrealradio.com.